love it.
Thank you.
Hey, Mo.
The doctor is in. It's so good to see your face.
I know the doctor is in, and we're going to have a great show. And we have Dr. Aisha here today. She's one of our, we have this phenomenal medical advisory board that we, that Mo helps us build, and she is a jewel. And I think you're going to be so blessed by what we're going to talk about today, but we're so happy to be here. And
it's so true.
And hang out. So
yeah, it's hump day. And a lot of people are struggling to get over the hump. I looked at the calendar and I kind of felt a little down on myself. I'm like, okay, it's mid-January already. Did I accomplish? Did I set my goals? Did I crush them? And I just started to pile all this pressure on myself today. And I think when we talk about, cancer and life and COVID and all the things, I said, cancer is the straw that broke the camel's back, but the camel's back was already broke from just life stuff. And we need to talk about integrative therapies that help you to be able to manage all of the things in your life, your cancer included. And that's what makes this show so special today, because we are talking with a naturopathic physician and a compassionate member, an advocate. You're right, somebody on our medical advisory board, and let's get you a board like ours where people love each other and work together for the good of the organization and the people that's in it. But Dr. Aisha Chilcote, would you introduce yourself again to everybody?
Yes, thank you all so much. I'm so excited to be here. And I think I was here in the fall and I talked a little bit about naturopathic medicine, what it is, which is like a form of natural medicine using things like herbal medicine in conjunction with conventional medicine. So I'm just so excited to be here today to speak specifically about some things that may help patients who might be going through treatment, and also just looking a little bit deeper, looking beyond just the medicine, but what are some other things that affect us, like in our mind, our body, spirit, even our emotions. So I'm excited to be here. So I'll turn it over to Ricky.
Well, I love your website. Well, love is healing. Healing is love. And I think that's where you start from. You start from love. And I always say, health equity means your doctor is going to treat you like they would treat their own family. And that's what Mo says all the time. And I think you have that same philosophy in terms of, you're trying to give people, take care of them and feel good about themselves. And so I thought we could do today. And, I'll be the patient and you be the doctor. I'm talking like my granddaughter now, right? Like playing house. But let's go through what someone does when they come to your office, when they come to you. So let's start with, first of all, how do I get to you? Like I'm a survivor and, I'm a thriver. I think I'm doing pretty good, but still the recurrence rate of breast cancer for Black women is 39% higher than white women. My relative risk of death as a Black woman is 71% higher than a white woman. So when I wake up in the morning and look at my little fake boobs, and kind of check myself out, and which I touch my little fake boobs every day, but when I do that, I always wonder, that the threat of breast cancer never goes away. And I'm 10 years out, but it still never goes away. I think about it, maybe because this is what I do every day, but still, I know a lot of us are worried about when that shoe's going to drop. I had a call from a patient earlier today, and she was talking about she couldn't get a PET scan. And she's had an MRI and a CAT scan, but her insurance won't approve a PET scan. And I said, well, do you feel anything? Are you symptomatic? Or, what's the matter? She's like, no, I feel fine, but I want the security of the PET scan to see if there's any cancer in my body. And I don't see why I can't have that. Why do I have to fight for that? Why do I have to have something be necessarily symptomatic to be able to get that? Because in the back of her head, she's worried. She's thinking. She's like, so what are some things?
Let me jump in, Ricky, and let me say, and as a segue into Dr. Chilcote, patients come to me all the time and they have severe anxiety. I spent an hour and a half with a lady today and talking about everything real, perceived, imagined, possible, every single thing that could happen in every alternate universe about her stage 0 breast cancer. And I told her, I said, I could do a double mastectomy on you and you would come back the week after surgery and say, well, how do we know there's no more cancer? We're not doing any more mammograms, right? And so it's not just here, it's here, and helping a patient to wrap their mind around that and feel empowered is something that we're not always good at, you know, as oncologic physicians. And when we shut patients down, we disempower them, and the trust can be broken. And so having, you know, a bridge like Dr. Chilcote is especially important, because patients can they leave our office feeling defeated and not understanding why the guidelines are the way they are.
Yeah, thank you, Dr. Mo, for saying that, because I think that the biggest picture and the biggest thing that I want to sort of implore to everybody is the mindset, right? So the mindset is going to be so important. And even though you want to have that security of having like the PET scan, you want to be insured of what shows up or doesn't show up on the scan, still in going into that, you want to have a mindset that's empowered, that's positive, that's thinking healthy, healing thoughts all the time. And this is a challenge, right? Because even if somebody's been through a lifestyle where they've been through trauma, abuse, betrayal, you still, when you're going through a healing journey, even with something like that, and sometimes patients who have been diagnosed with cancer are going through that same healing journey at the same time from having trauma, right? But the thing is that we have to learn to teach patients how to think. And it's not just thinking positive, it's really just sort of getting out of this negative loop, the anxiety, the worry, the depression, to then set them on the road where they're able to think positive thoughts. It just starts to come. This is not a very intuitive process, because a lot of our thinking is subconscious. So don't want to get totally off into that, but I do want to tell you a lot about naturopathic medicine and what it is. Okay.
Yeah.
And so if you're looking, like if you were coming to me or you were looking, how do I find you? How do I find Love is Healing? How do I find a naturopathic doctor that's going to care about me, that's going to teach me, going to help explain to me how the natural therapy is going to go alongside with my conventional treatment? One of the websites that you can go to is naturopathic.org. And so you can probably put that on the Facebook, but it's naturopathic.org. And that can basically guide you to finding a naturopathic doctor. If you want to find someone who has done advanced training in naturopathic medicine as it relates to oncology, there's another website, and it's ABNO, it's American Board of Naturopathic Oncology, abno.org. And again, you can follow the links to find a naturopathic doctor in your area. So those are two websites that can really help to just in your search. I mean, you can obviously do a Google search in your city for a naturopathic doctor as it relates to cancer, but those are the main ones nationally that I recommend to all patients and caregivers too, because sometimes people are looking for someone for a family member or a friend, right? And so what you're getting when you go and you find that doctor, you're finding someone who's been adequately trained, right? So the main thing you want to find is a naturopathic doctor who has been trained at a naturopathic, one of the accredited naturopathic medical schools in the United States, which means their training was very similar to a primary care physician that went to medical school. You know, your first 2 years are basic sciences, your latter 2 years are focused more on the clinic, and you're also looking at treating people with different modalities like acupuncture, herbal medicine, physical medicine, nutrition. So when you go to a naturopathic doctor, they have been really deeply trained in the area of nutrition. And this is really huge, Ricky, and I want to just emphasize it because people look to doctors for their advice on what to eat, nutrition. Sometimes people will be directed to a dietitian or a nutritionist, but a lot of times they're looking to their doctor for advice. So as a naturopathic doctor, we get a lot of training specifically as it relates to nutrition and helping people not only just to create like a nutritional plan, but we also want to share things with you like, let's say, for example, sugar, right? The downside to sugar, especially if somebody's been diagnosed with a cancer, we want to explain from a physiological standpoint what that sugar's doing to those cancer cells. And a lot of people say, oh, I read sugar feeds cancer. And there's a lot of buzzwords around that. But what a naturopathic doctor will do is get more specific, and they will explain to you the real dangers of that. And not to say that no one can ever have a cookie again, but what we do want to do is educate you to empower you enough to know the things that are in your control for your health, right?
Dr. Aida, I just ate a cookie, a graham cracker just now, and I really like ice cream. Like,
Yes.
help with that.
I'm just gonna say, Ricky, you eat ice cream every night. That's part of your
Ice cream every day.
Is that part of your therapy?
It is. It really is. And I also drink chai tea a lot, which I also learned today was like a lot of sugar in chai tea. I mean, I knew that, but so those are my advice. Probably
Can I ask you a question?
Yeah.
Because what do you say to those people who say, you know what, I need to live in it now because I don't know what my tomorrow holds, and,
Right.
and they have a perspective that they should feel empowered to do as they feel because of the unpredictability of life and of cancer. How do we find that balance?
I think that's the key word, is balance. It's that, you wouldn't let your child just eat cookies and eat sugar. We monitor, right? We say you've had enough of this, because as the parent, we know, okay, these are the effects. If that child gets too much sugar and it is 8 o'clock at night, we know what the consequences will be. But sometimes I think when we're selecting things as adults, we may not know what the consequences of eating too much sugar are. So is it okay to have a cookie? Absolutely. Is it okay to have ice cream? Sure. But what you want to do is you want to create that balance for you, and you want to educate yourself. And this is what the naturopathic doctor can do as you're working with them, helping you to understand maybe the detrimental effects of having too much sugar. Okay. So it's a real reality check, and it may not even be a comfortable one. But it's just one that we have to discuss.
I know, it's so sad. It's so sad. But I eat the broccoli and the spinach too, so.
Oh, well, that's good. That's wonderful. That's part of the balance, right? So you're not going too far on the one side where you're not getting any green leafy veggies, but at the same time, you just want to kind of look at where you are. And I think sometimes it can be very overwhelming to even check yourself from a nutrition standpoint. So this is why I think it's important to work with a nutritionist, a dietitian, a naturopathic doctor, someone who has been really adequately trained in that area with food. Because what you really want to do, and the reason why it's a problem, is because you want your body to be as strong as it possibly can be. You want your immune system to be as strong as it possibly can be to fight the cancer, right? So when we talk about those rates with the African American women being so much higher, risk factors being higher, we have to look at diet and lifestyle.
Yeah.
We can't dismiss that, but then talk about stats, right? So this is the part where we have to own what are things that we can do in our lifestyle. So Dr. Mo said it best with that balance. I think the balance is really the key, because like I said, everybody's going to have a cookie now and then. I mean, that's just silly to think you're going to remove all sweets, but some patients do. I have some patients who will be like, I don't want any type of sugar. And, it's kind of hard to sell that to everybody. So I usually don't. I usually go the road of balance. So.
Okay. Well, what does sugar really do? Tell me what the sugar does.
Oh boy. Yeah.
You want to chime in, Dr. Mo?
No, you go right ahead.
Okay. So one of the things it can do is lower the immune system, right? So when we talk about the immune system, our immune system's in place to make sure that things are running in balance, right? So if I depress my immune function and I allow my body to be unchecked by the immune system, that allows other things that may not be advantageous to start happening, like a certain type of cell growth to happen, certain types of metastasis to happen. The other thing, so when we talk about the immune system, which I don't want to get too deep into, but I think we know even from this current situation we've been in for the last 2 years, we know how crucial that and how important that
Yeah.
is. So when we affect it, we're affecting our body's defense system to be able to really truly manage any other foreign invaders, including viruses and bacteria, not just the cancer, but everything else.
Right.
Right? So it's really about strength. And that's what I like to share with patients, that you want to keep yourself and your body as strong as possible, because the main thing you want to do is to be in a great position to fight the cancer, better. So I hope that
I
answers.
love that. And I want to jump in because I want to go there about the immune system, because I think that it's so important to recognize what a cancer is and what a cancer cell is. It's a cell that has made mistakes. It has a mistake in the factory, and so all the products that come out of the factory are now faulty as well, and they've learned to live forever. And we have a mechanism, like Dr. Aisha said, we have a mechanism to recognize mistaken cells and hopefully eliminate them before they make a million, before they replicate and live forever. And so boosting that immune system is huge, and things like sugar can impact that. But this is an area, Ricky, as we look at where we need to go in the future and how especially Black patients can get involved and can push the needle forward, the impact of the immune response on cancer, the impact of things like stress triggering the immune system. There's an article that just came out at the end of last year that looked at what we call the renin-angiotensin system. So the way the kidneys modulates the blood pressure, and how stress genes impact that pathway that then impacts cancer progression and cancer remission. And just things like that. We need more research, because it's all kind of abstracts and little small studies with small numbers. But this is a study that anybody can sign up for. How stress impacts your body and your cancer. That's something that we should be looking at. And so I want people to keep it in mind, because, somebody put in the comments here, is it evidence-based or is it, community defined evidence-based? Who defines what the evidence is? And I think that we need to look at that and define that for ourselves.
The other thing I want to just say, Dr. Mo, thank you so much for sharing that. The other thing is and I know people know that we live in a toxic world. We're exposed to a ton of chemicals through car exhaust, through gasoline, certain cosmetics.
Stuff in our house. I did a study about that.
Spray
products.
Yes.
All that stuff.
So all that stuff we're exposed to. And guess what happens? Our body has to bear the brunt of that. And we have to detoxify. So people say, how do I detox? And I'm not talking about just doing a tea and eliminating it out. It's about, there's a process that our body goes through to detoxify from chemicals in a healthy way. And they go through our liver, right?
Can you talk a little more about that? Because people throw that word detox around like, cauliflower and apple cider vinegar and sea moss, right? And it's like the fourth word in that cluster is detox.
I will.
Right.
Yeah, I will do that. And let me just say, so for detoxification, the main organ in our body that detoxes is our liver, right? Yeah. And so it's done in a two-phase process, right? So first step is a phase 1 process, and there's certain vitamins, there's certain minerals that have to be present in your body in order to actually run those reactions. Then you're going to go through a phase 2, same thing. And a lot of the vitamins and minerals that you need are like B vitamins, zinc, magnesium. And zinc and magnesium are 2 minerals that a lot of people may not even have in their diet if they're not getting whole foods, right? So it's great to do the sea moss and some of these other, I don't want to say gimmicky things, but these things that do it, but there's not enough education behind what is happening in this detoxification process, right? So the detoxification process is the fact that you need certain vitamins, minerals, another something it's called glutathione. There's a lot of foods that help boost glutathione, which is our main super antioxidant to help our body detox. I'll give you a list. I'll give you some foods that are really great. Brussels sprouts, avocados, kale, spinach that you mentioned, apples. These are things that when we eat more of those types of things, we allow our body to detox. We help our body to repair from some of this DNA damage that can happen in cancer. And we also help to boost our immune system. So when we think about eating healthy, it's like more than just, I think I'll eat healthy today. Eating healthy should be a way of life. It's what we want to choose because we have an understanding of what's really happening. So part of why I really am so excited to be here on the show is because I get to talk about detoxification and immune system. And a lot of things like this, we don't really hear enough in our community. We'll just do, if somebody says, take this or take that, but you need to have a little bit of understanding of the why. Okay, there's another website I can give you too with regards to that. And I think I've shared it on the last show, and that's Environmental Working Group. It's ewg.org, and the Environmental Working Group has a lot of information on even certain foods that get heavily sprayed with pesticides versus the ones that don't. It even has a link to a cosmetics database that lets you know certain chemicals. When you turn over the back of your cosmetics and you read all these big words and numbers, you're like, who knows what that is? This website can actually tell you what that is. And they have done studies on things that are linked to, could be infertility, cancer development. So we want to be very aware of things that can affect our health that we might not know about.
Some things sometimes we hear a lot about too. Well, I can't afford to shop at Whole Foods. I can't afford organic foods, or there's no Whole Foods in my neighborhood. Where can I get organic foods? Or when I go to the grocery store, the organic vegetables are twice as much as the regular ones. Like, how can I can't afford it. I can't afford it for me, and I definitely can't afford it for my 3 kids. Right?
Yeah. And I've heard that, and I hear that, and I understand that because that's real, right? So you get up to a cash register, you have to have the money to be able to pay for the veggies. So I think, so these are some tips that I've shared with people. That website, that Environmental Working Group, it explains the top 12 fruits and vegetables that have been the most heavily sprayed with pesticides, right? Mm-hmm. What I usually suggest to people is, when you look at that list, at least try to prioritize getting those organic. Do not eat those if they are not organic, right? Mm-hmm. So you can not do something even though you don't have money to pay for, right? So that's one thing you can do. And then the list will also, there's another list that shows the ones that are least sprayed. So that's the clean list. So those you may not want to necessarily get organic, right? So you can kind of prioritize and think through a little bit of that. Mm-hmm. The other thing is farmers markets. I know it's a little cold now where we are here, but farmers markets sometimes have a little bit better deals. It may be a little bit cheaper, and just kind of thinking through that. If you don't live in a heavily urban area and you live in a rural area, that's even better. Trying to buy things in season. So like I'm in North Carolina. So like around May, I think that's when the strawberries are ready. So mm-hmm. That's a great time where I may buy more strawberries than I ever imagined I could buy. But sometimes I freeze them. So I buy them, I wash them, and I freeze them because they're in season. They're the sweetest strawberries I've ever had in my entire life. They haven't been sprayed with chemicals. And I can use those throughout my time to get creative with some of my food to get some fruits and veggies in. So it's kind of like a different way of thinking, right? It's not just going to the grocery store and picking up a can of green beans or picking up necessarily even looking for organic, but trying. And honestly, I will tell you what I do personally. I buy organic things. I try to buy things that are on sale that are organic. Right? Mm-hmm. So I don't go to the store and think, I'm getting this, I'm getting that. No, I'm getting what's on sale, that's organic, that's healthy for me this week. And it may shift next week. Right. And so sometimes even freezing things, so that's another option because it kind of freezes it right in time and you still get some of those great enzymes in your food. So just another little tip.
And it's okay to freeze stuff for it doesn't take away the nutrition.
Yeah, I do. I mean, it's probably not exactly, at the same level as fresh,
Okay.
but it's a lot better than like canned vegetables or
Right,
something.
right.
Perfectly
So
acceptable.
talk
Let me,
to canned vegetables and frozen vegetables.
Yeah, I can talk about that. So all vegetables have things in them called enzymes, and our bodies need enzymes to run some of those biochemical reactions. Remember, I was talking about the liver and detoxification. We need enzymes to be able, number one, to break down our food for digestion, but also for detoxification, right? So you get the most enzymatic energy from your food if it's live. So like if you have a garden, you pick up, cucumbers, that's going to have the most in it, right?
Okay.
The next tier is if it's frozen, right? Frozen vegetables. And the last tier is canned. So when you get to canned vegetables, they've been preserved, right? So there's preservatives in them to make sure that they can be okay for 2 years, but you're not really getting the enzyme activity, right? So it's hard for me to check mark and say, okay, go ahead and do canned if you can't do anything else. I would try to encourage people, like even if you don't even live in an area where you have like a lot of grocery stores, thinking about things like the farmer's market or getting things when you can and freezing them. I know some people can things, or they put things in those little baggies or little Pyrex dishes, something like that, where you're getting more. It's hard because I know that there are challenges that are outside of some people's control, and the only thing they can do is can vegetables.
Right.
And that's just where, you're at. But I would encourage there's a lot more activity going on with these farmers markets and getting fresh foods, especially in our communities. And
Yeah.
I would suggest that people really take advantage of that.
Let me jump in and say on that note, now is the time, at least in the Philadelphia area and greater Philadelphia area, all of the local urban farmers, the small farms, the big farms, everybody is signing up for CSA, community shared and community sourced agriculture, right? And so you may go in with maybe you were in a breast cancer support group or an advocacy group, right, in your local area. Maybe you guys all chip in on a CSA together. And then you can
explain that.
CSA, so community shared agriculture, right, is goods from the local farms. It's local produce. It can be different every week. It's herbs, it's whatever they have that they will then package and bring you. They meet you at the farmers market or have pickup locations. But CSAs in every city across this country, every major city and in the rural areas as well, is really huge because farmers don't want to have surpluses of things. They want to be able to share this with the community and not go to the markets. They want to go direct to consumers, as they say. So directly from farm to your table. So CSA, and if you Google that, you will find, and Google CSA in your city, you will find places, spaces, and people, especially more Black and brown people, that are having smaller urban gardens, community gardens, and they have produce, they have herbs, they have tea, they have locally sourced honey, sometimes cheese and other things. And it's a great way to get your fresh stuff. And like Dr. Aisha said, I encourage my patients to freeze it. Go out and go to the farmer's market, buy all the strawberries and citrus and all the things that you can find that are going to help boost your nutrition, and then freeze it, so that you can use it at your leisure, because it does you no good to buy it all like I do, and then it sits in the fridge, and next thing you know, you got some fruit and some vegetables that's not doing so well. So that's the part that we don't talk about enough either, is the proper storage of food. And Dr. Aisha, let me ask you this, because patients always want to know, should a patient, and it may be a variable answer, but in general, are there detoxes that are safe for patients who are in active treatment?
In active treatment, I usually don't recommend detoxification protocols. And the reason is because in addition to our body's ability to detox from chemicals, you would be detoxing from your chemotherapy or whatever your treatment is at the same time. So different drugs run through they're called different pathways, right? To clear, right? To clear out. Some go through kidneys. Mostly everything goes through the liver. So usually if somebody's in active treatment, that's not the time to recommend a detoxification protocol. But what I would suggest that a lot of times, if I'm working with a new patient, we want to make sure that we're protecting the good things about the body. So we want to protect certain body organs. We want to protect certain processes of our bodies so that we're not doing damage to good things, but we're more focused on allowing that medication and that chemotherapy to affect the cancer selectively. Does that make sense what I mean? Because yeah, so I think this is where when you work with a naturopathic doctor, like if you were to come to me, I would say, okay, there's certain supplements that we know that are evidence-based, which means that they have either gone through a randomized clinical trial, or they may even have a small pilot study where it's been certain supplements that have been given in a human population that we have deemed to be safe and that may help in certain things, right? So for example, as patients, if it's a breast cancer patient, they're going through radiation therapy, right? There's been a ton of studies on taking something called curcumin, which is the main element in turmeric, which is a spice, this yellow spice that's in our cabinets. Well, the main constituent out of that is something called curcumin. And there's a lot of different brands that make this curcumin. But essentially what happens, it works, number one, to protect your good cells when you're going through radiation. And it makes the radiation actually work better, selectively targeted against the cancer cells, right? So if someone's going through a radiation therapy, it's like, wow, like let's put this supplement on board, especially because we know it has some evidence, which means we have had some scientific studies to show that it can be helpful, right?
Can you spell that?
Curcumin, yeah. CURCUM as in Mary, IN.
Okay, cool. Put in the chat. Okay.
Careful with that one during chemotherapy, though, because it interferes with the cytochrome P450, the liver enzymes that process the chemo. And I explain it to my patients like this, it all can work together. But when you go to visit, let's say like there's a holistic and there's a health food store that's near my practice. And I partner with one of the naturopathic doctors who runs that center, that health center. And I say, make sure to ask, how is this processed and does it go through the liver? Because if you do if you ingest and take certain supplements that are metabolized through the liver, it creates a traffic jam, basically. Mm-hmm. And that means that things you want to get out of your system stay in the system too long because we've made a traffic jam in the liver while it's processing other things. And that can increase the toxicity of some of the things like chemotherapy. And that's what you don't want to do. You don't want to be, on a holistic pathway while increasing your toxicity from things like chemo. And somebody asked in the chat, Dr. Aisha, what are some ways, because I said you can boost your metabolism and you're healing from the side effects of chemotherapy, right? Like that is a thing that I think is possible in many ways. And somebody said, well, how? What are some of the ways to help you to get rid of things like neuropathy and some of the nausea and other side effects of chemo?
Yeah, so that's a great question. And just to even go with what Dr. Mo just said about being careful and not taking curcumin, especially when you're on certain active chemotherapies because of the detoxification, how it goes through the liver, right? That pathway. And that's really important. And I should have said that before, just because there are certain chemos that it's like a no, you don't want to do that. This is why it's so difficult to do a very general talk about supplements because it's got to be so specific, right? Because it's not just the chemotherapy drugs. You also have to look at, are you on high blood pressure medication? Do you take a statin? Do you have asthma? It's so many different things and you want to be specific. And some people were so used to just doctoring ourselves and I read about it, I heard about it, so-and-so took it, I'm taking it too. So but if you really want to know, it's kind of like, okay, so when we talk about neuropathy or some other side effects and what can we do? There's different things that I do. There's sometimes just B vitamins can be helpful. There's a powder called L-glutamine, which I may use sometimes, especially with certain chemotherapies. So it gets to be a little bit specific in terms of what is the cancer type, what chemotherapy are you on,
Right.
and what is your neuropathy like, right? Because even sometimes I may even use vitamin E, but I'm also very cautious with that, depending on what people's blood counts are, if they're on a blood thinner. So it gets really very specific in terms of making a suggested recommendation in terms of a supplement. So I never want to just give like blanket,
You know what? It's really like going to the doctor for anything, Dr. Aisha,
Yeah.
right? So I'm not gonna, you know, we all try to self-diagnose ourselves. I know this is sinus infection, I know this is a cold, whatever, but really we need to go talk to an expert. And so
Yeah.
just like I would need to talk to Mo about breast surgery, I need to talk to you about how to make my body better or more healthy or more immune than by talking to you. So you need to have professional help here. So I think going back
And
to
I
the
will,
resources.
yeah,
Isn't that
yeah,
great?
I'll say
Mhm.
one of the reasons, I became a naturopathic doctor was for this very reason. Because even for myself, it was like I would read this book. And when I kind of got into this, it was like, what, about 16, 17 years ago when I decided to go back to school. But even at that time, there was limited information, but there was still information. It wasn't as heavy as it is right now. And so I didn't even feel like I really had a good understanding of it. So
Mhm.
going to school, understanding the biology and the physiology and all these other things about how the body works, and then understanding how do herbs work.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
just want to give this little plug for herbs because I love herbs because they're from the earth, which is awesome. But herbs do not just work like in a linear fashion, okay? They have so many different actions and mechanisms of how they work. And when you take, let's say you take a supplement and it has like 5 different herbs in it, you've got a lot of different actions happening at one time. So
Mm.
you really want to make sure you're working with somebody who understands the actions of those herbs and also is looking at your whole picture, your lifestyle, your stress, your medications, your everything, like everything going on with you, because that holistic approach is what it really takes to really try to bring that healing forward, right?
Yeah, I
I
think
love this.
yeah, I love this too. And I was gonna say Mo, that I feel like you're treating my whole body, like body, mind, and spirit, as opposed to treating a cancer cell or cancer tumor. Do you know what I mean? I feel like you're looking at my whole lifestyle, everything about me. And so you're not just treating kind of one area that I'm dealing with right now. You're making me healthier overall,
Yes, that's
right?
And the thing is, right, in the era of personalized medicine, can't and shouldn't this be personalized also? Right? Because we're doing so much now
Yeah.
to tailor to the tumor specific biology, to the hormone receptors, to the risk of recurrence happening early, happening late. Like we can tell if a tumor is going to come back in 3 years or in 10 years and where it might come back. We're getting to that point of being able to tell for certain types of cancer. But shouldn't your holistic approach to your cancer care also be tailored and be specific and unique to you? And that's what I really love about what you're saying is that, yeah, we could do some generalizations. We can say, okay, for neuropathy, here's 5 great things you could try. Right. And I think that's what people are looking for,
Right, right.
especially for nausea. Here's 3 good things that can work for you. But when it gets to the nitty gritty of what's going to help your body to optimally function and recover, you got to see somebody who can give you a very personalized prescriptive for your cancer. For those who are watching, this is a program about, in particular, about cancer care, breast cancer especially, and we're talking about naturopathic or naturopathic approaches to that. So someone asked about lupus, and we can certainly reach out. You can reach Dr. Aisha on her website, and she can give you a consultation about that. Would you and says, why won't they say that lupus is cancer? It does the same thing to your body that lupus does. Cancer and lupus they're close. Doc?
They're close. Yeah, they're very close. I mean, it's considered autoimmune, so it's basically where your body is like attacking itself. And so, in that respect, I would say, specifically with lupus, I look at the whole person, especially diet is a really huge part of that. And also the thought processes and the thinking, just going back to that. Anytime I'm working with a patient, they've been diagnosed with something, a lot of times just in listening to what's been going on with them, their lifestyle, their life, I already have an idea of, okay, this is where we need to go with empowering this particular patient and educating them, right? And so sometimes it can just be a little thing. It's not about blame. It's not about self-blame. It's not about feeling rejected. It's not about hating this person, or if that hadn't happened and this caused this and all of this stuff, right? It's about being right there in that space and saying, okay, what are things that I can do to help empower? And one of the things I found with lupus specifically, the thoughts, the mental thoughts and having a mental positive outlook, and also with the diet. And that's just kind of general for autoimmune. People who have been diagnosed with autoimmune conditions, and certainly that's not everybody. And the first thing, and I never want to offend anybody when I ever say anything, but I realize even with myself, sometimes when I've heard people talk and I feel offended, I'm like, well, wait a minute, why am I offended? So sometimes jumping to an offense mentally is already a signal that, hey, we want to be able to receive and give in love in everything that we do. And sometimes, it takes a step, we have to take a step back to realize that we may not be doing that all the time. This isn't like we have to get some kind of award, like, did you do it or didn't you? Our life is not happening to us, right? We're happening to life. So our thoughts are creating this reality for us.
Say that again. I got to pause because I don't think people got that.
I'm writing that down.
I need to hear that for me tonight. That one's speaking just to me. Go.
But it's like, we're not, life is not happening to us. We're happening to life, right? So our thoughts, especially our subconscious thoughts, and by subconscious, these are thoughts you're not aware of. These are things that may have happened in our childhood up into early adulthood that we may or may not had any control of it. It just kind of goes in. So it's like we have to get to a position where we can reprogram how we think. And this takes work. This is why I think anyone who's been diagnosed with anything, and even if you haven't been diagnosed, working with a really good therapist, working with someone who can help, especially through that anxiety, the worrying, depression, negative thinking, past traumas, hurt, abuse, all of those things. Because unfortunately, we don't know how deeply that may have impacted us, right? And so usually by the time someone's diagnosed, or if, when they're diagnosed with a certain malignancy, it's like, well, I'll wait and do that later. I want to do this first. So it's like this disconnect, right, between what happened in the past and what's happening now. So I encourage, women, any patient, to go through that process, especially when you can get mind-body therapy. It's so powerful. It's so powerful. It's so liberating. It's really putting you on the journey of healing and health. And I don't think that we talk about this piece enough in our community. So I just wanted to just bring that up. Just the power of our thoughts.
Yeah.
Can I ask you about that? Because I think that we find and that we are taught in our community a sort of active avoidance of things that are displeasing, and we don't give them a name. We don't speak them because we say, well, I'm not going to speak things into existence. And we misinterpret the ways that affirmation and that words have power. And I want to know, I wonder if you can just speak to that for people, because part of that connecting of the mind and the body, we sever that tie when we always say, I'm fine, I'm good, I'm fine. And it takes a while to
I'm good.
Right? When they're not fine, you can see it all on their face. And I say, well, how are you doing today? And they'll say, I'm fine. I say, how about you? How are you really doing? I'm fine. Okay, so how are you feeling? I'm okay. Okay, so what's really going on in your life? Because you look like you're about 2 seconds from from this?
Right.
Like, can we deal with the real here? And what do you say to people who feel like giving a thing a name or talking about it is giving it power?
I hear what you're saying, Dr. Mo. I'm so glad you asked that, because I used to be like that. You know, you don't want to speak that. You don't want to give it
Right.
name.
I don't say it, it won't happen.
But yet you're doing it here. This is the worst place.
You're talking to the voices in your head.
You've already done it, right? And so the speaking part, words are power, right? So you definitely want, and I would encourage you to speak out that which is good. But just saying you're fine and you're not fine here is the disconnect, right? So this is the part where you may want to get that level of support through therapy. They have a lot of different, and some people say, well, I don't know if I want to do that. Well, they have Christian therapists, they have Bible counseling, they have so many different types of therapy that may work for you, right? So it may not be just a traditional psychiatrist or a psychologist, but you may be able to get, because basically, ultimately what you want to do is get to a place where you can shift your thinking. So, you know, therapy is great. I mean, there's even—
That's such a bad word in our community, though.
Okay, so yes, so I would suggest there are books that can teach you about thinking, you know, just your thoughts. So even if it's something where you say, you know what, I'm not going therapy, I don't have to have a problem. Well, I hate to be the bearer of bad news, but being someone who has seen thousands of patients, pretty much everybody has something. And I mean, and it's just a normal part of life, because nobody's perfect, right? But at the same time, people who fare better are generally ones who, when they are going through treatment, can use this as an opportunity towards healing. And part of that healing is understanding how our thoughts affect us, how they affect our emotions, and then and I think what Mo said, like not wanting to speak that out. And I can understand that, but keeping it in and speaking it here is also can be very detrimental.
This is bad. And we know anxiety.
And we may need, and we may need assistance with making sure we're able to get on that positive track, because it's not an intuitive process. And by intuitive means like, oh yeah, I know what's good for me. Well, okay. We just want, you know, we want to manifest that which is positive and which is good, and also giving ourselves the grace, and really just giving ourselves the grace and the self-love, and because this is where we get to a position of peace. And so whatever that is for you, mindfulness is really great. It's a non-religious, non-spiritual practice, but it helps you to become mindful of what you're actively doing. There's other practices. Some people really gravitate towards yoga. Some people gravitate towards the meditation piece. So these are practices that can really help us with that self-love, and really giving ourselves grace. And that's like a permission that we can be okay. You know, not having to just be in this constant striving position, or I have to be on top of this. I have to be in control of this. I have to know this. I have to know the answer. I have to know how this is going to work out. If this doesn't work out, then this is not going to work. All of the stuff that we do, these are normal things that we do.
Yeah.
We have to start to shift to bring the balance and the self-love and the grace and the peace and the joy and the happiness. So it's a process, but it's not something that we just like pop up and just know how to do. It comes.
No, you're right. We enforce the hustle mindset, that hustle mentality, right? We don't give ourselves permission to either rest, to slow down, to just do one thing. Right? We'll watch a movie, our laptop's on, we got a book on, we got something on the oven, we got something on the stove. Like we can't just do one thing. And the part about giving yourself grace, I've been messaging a person in the chat who's going through some struggles. And I said, what about just saying, you know, today I'm doing the best I can. Right. And like you said, that giving yourself some grace and saying some sweet things. And while you can say, you know, I might not feel my best at this moment, you can acknowledge that thing, how you feel, acknowledge where you are. You're not speaking it into existence. It exists. You feel crappy. It's okay. But this too shall pass. I'm doing the best I can. Go ahead, Doc.
you can even shift that, right? So even when you think this negative, oh my gosh, you can say no, and you can just jump and think something positive, even if you don't necessarily feel it. You can shift your thoughts just like you can shift your speech. So, in other words, if I'm going to tell somebody off, I could say, no, I'm not going to tell them off. I'm going to bless them. You can do these kinds of
Right,
exercises
right.
mentally, right? Where you can shift and go from, okay, you just want to think positive. So,
Yeah. I think, we're all these super women. We wear these capes. I call it the purple cape, I call it the Olivia Pope syndrome. I mean, or just even we go 100 miles an hour taking care of everybody, and it's so hard to stop. I mean, I was so cranky at the end of the year, and I remember thinking, I'm really cranky. This is not who I am. And I really just need to shut off my computer and put it in a box for a week. And that's what I did. And I feel so much better now. Thank you, God. But I had to force myself to do that, to shut the computer. And I actually taped it closed with duct tape.
That's great.
And
COVID did that to me.
Yeah.
COVID gave me the excuse to rest because I couldn't do anything else. And if it did nothing else, it made me sit down. It made me sat down, like the old folks say. It made me sat down.
Yeah.
But we need to take that time. But that was God telling you to sit down, right?
Yeah.
And I had to just put it away. And I knew that if I have made everybody, I showed everybody in my family, okay, you see the duct tape, if it's gone, right? And I left it there. But we don't do that, and it's it's like a woman thing, but it's definitely a Black woman thing. And we need to be, I think we're better superheroes. We're better helicopter moms. We're better, control freaks. We're better when we take a pause and give ourselves time to breathe and take those rests when we need them. And, maybe it's just 5 minutes a day. Maybe it's just, a couple hours a week, but you got to find a place where you can, just sit down, and maybe without the TV, without the phone, without the, I wear mine around my neck. It's ridiculous, right? So
can I share something, Ricky? So yeah, that's great, because I know in the fall I was just so beyond busy, and the only thing I could do, or what I decided to do, was to take a 10-minute shower, which normally my showers are 5 minutes because I'm in and out,
Right.
But I was like, no, I can dim the lights. I'm going to actually mindfully enjoy this shower, which was great because it slowed me down. It gave me a pause, and I could actually learn to enjoy even just a routine task. Even if all I had was the moment to be able to bathe, I could do it joyfully versus just this rush. I got to go, So just taking a moment to pause, or even just when you make a beautiful plate of food, you make these beautiful vegetables, enjoy them, looking at the colors of your food, really being able to absorb and take in just how that looks. How do you feel? How does the food make you feel? This is how we can bring mindfulness into our daily activities, where we can really help to practice self-love. So sometimes it's not just in the form of a bubble bath, where you have to get everything ready and have it this perfect situation. It could just be in your everyday life and in your choices.
It's so funny you say that, because my daughter has 3 babies under 4, and so when I'm the nanny on Mondays, when I get over there, I get there at 8:00 in the morning, the first thing she does is get in the shower. She's waiting for me, almost naked, standing at the bathroom door, waiting for me to walk in so she can take a shower by herself.
To enjoy it, yeah.
And sometimes she does stay in there for a while. I'm like, Amanda, what are you doing? But I think you're right. She takes, something that we just take for granted, but make it better, make it longer, make it special.
Or just enjoying a cup of tea,
yeah.
Just having that as your part of your day or in your evening, but doing things that give you and bring you joy.
Yeah. Gotta bring joy. Love is healing. Healing is
It's
love.
been a really rich conversation. If
I
you're
know.
watching and trying to figure out what we've been talking about,
I know.
because I mean, we hit on a lot of different things.
Yeah.
And if you're just joining watchingblackdoctor.org, this is The Doctor Is In. We're on every Wednesday night at 6 p.m. We talk about issues, especially germane or relevant to Black breast cancer, but for caregivers, for advocates. And this talk tonight is for everybody. We're talking about naturopathic medicine. We're talking about how food can be medicine and the need to actually sit and visit with a specialist instead of just going off of what other people have told you. You know, not to say anything bad about any supplements or anything that we do. It all has its place, but there are some people who can help to tailor make a plan for your body, for your illness, for your wellness. And Dr. Chilcote is one of those people. And I mean, she is just dropping all kinds of gems here. People are asking for your contact information in the chat because we want and we crave this type of medicine. This is the kind of medicine that feels good to us ancestrally as well, right?
Yes, yes. And it feels that way too, because you know it's coming from a position of love. Like when I got into this, it was all about helping. I would just pray and say, Lord, maybe I could just help 5 people in my life. You know, and I had no idea it would end up being thousands, right? Because I worked in that hospital, the Cancer Treatment Center of America. So, you know, in my vision, it was just to be able to share a lot of the information that I was craving, just wanting to know, what do I eat? You know, what does this do? What does that do? How do they all work together? And so you realize, and I've been doing this a while now, there's a lot of different components to it, right? Right now I'm in class to do this Masters of Public Health, right? So then you start looking at these social determinants of disease. So you're not just looking at what you're doing. There's a lot of things from a societal structure standpoint that affect our communities. And sometimes that affects, you know, the limited choices, like you mentioned, Ricky. What if I can't get organic food? What if I can't get to Whole Foods? What if I, you know, so there's a lot of things that have impacted our community that unfortunately affect our reality and some of the choices that we have. But I just want to encourage everybody, our thoughts are the most powerful thing that we have. So we can always still choose to think positive. We can always still choose to think whatever, even if people consider it daydreaming or imagining. There's nothing wrong with that. As a matter of fact, I encourage people to imagine and daydream all the time. Maybe not when you're driving. Not when you're driving, but do this because this is the powerful thing that we have. No matter what it looks like on the outside, no matter what's going on with your job and people screaming in the house, you can take yourself here to create that reality that you want to see for yourself. And this is something that I've been just even doing myself over the last 2 years. So it's not something that, oh, I know this. No, you may not be trained to know that intuitively, but guess what? We all are walking through life, this path of life, and we can all grow into thinking like that. So
I tell my patients that all the time. See yourself on the other side of this. You got to see it so you can see it. You know, it's so important wherever you are, people who are watching an active treatment, people who are in remission and in anxiety and, you know, in pain, in COVID, in whatever, see yourself on the other side of this.
Right.
See yourself well.
And you know, even when we think about our metastatic patients, you know, you have to think positively about it and think about, you know, things that you can do to just sustain, you know, just be happy and live in the moment and do the things that are going to keep you happy.
And it can be difficult. So I never want to underestimate sometimes what people are dealing with, because sometimes if somebody is metastatic and maybe perchance they have unresolved things that may have been traumatic that have happened, those are the types of things that you still want to heal from, right? You don't want, so working with a therapist and then, you know, examining your thoughts, it can be challenging. So I never want someone to start working on that alone, because it's honestly, a lot of our thoughts were on autopilot. We just think them, we just keep thinking that way. So really just bringing some attention there, but really working with somebody so that no one feels alone.
No one fights alone. We say that. So how can people reach you, Dr. Aisha?
So you have my website. I don't know if
Yeah.
it's on the little flyer, but you
Yeah.
can go there. And then there's ways to email me through that too.
Great, 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 great. Great,
Feeling.
great, great. Wow. Thank you so much for this. You got to come back soon.
Powerful.
You know,
Yeah.
your voice calms us down and makes us feel safe. And, you know, to me, I always say love is a verb, and you are the epitome of love is a verb. So thank you for
Oh,
I
loving
was
on
looking
us.
forward to this all day. And I
know,
was like,
I
Dr. Aisha's going to be on tonight because I've been having it's been a rough getting back to work and getting back in my
Yeah.
groove. And
Yeah.
I was just excited to get something out of this for myself. So whoever you are and you know, that you're watching and wherever you might be, we hope that you can take away something from this and that you can, you know, if you maybe feel like you're not doing a great job of self-care, don't beat up on yourself about that because then we do that too. And we end up in this pit of, you know, sort of self-degradation almost or depression, and it keeps us paralyzed. If
Yeah.
you're wanting more information, we put some websites in the chat that really speak to the environmental aspects that talk about some further things with nutrition and supplements, and be careful and do your research and look for reputable sources, because you could look up a list of, you know, estrogenic foods and fruits and vegetables, but it'll take you down a rabbit hole of things that you don't know how to interpret. And so a physician like Dr. Chilcote can help you to interpret what you're reading. You know, we want you to bring questions and be an active participant in your care, your cancer care especially. So do your research, but talk to your experts that you trust so that you can get good information.
And if you need help, we'll help you find it. You know, just give us a call. You know how to reach us. I do want to give a shout out to my good friends in Atlanta, and they're good. Tia works with them at Eat Right Atlanta, and they have a great organic food thing. They actually bring stuff to your house and deliver a basket to you every week, and they do it with hospitals. But my friend Nicole, and they're awesome. I put that in the chat as well. But
Do well and Unite for her also. Yes.
Yep. So thank you so much. So you guys, next week we have a really great show coming. See my t-shirt?
Yes.
So
I'm ready for my shirt.
Yeah, got your shirt for you. We are launching our movement to get more Black women into clinical trials. You know, the science right now is not working in our favor, and we have to get more Black women in science. And guess what? We have to do it for ourselves. Just like Black women do everything for ourselves, we have to do it for ourselves. So we're starting a movement. We have April Ryan's going to be on the show next week to help us launch this campaign. We have some phenomenal breasties, and we're so excited. So make sure you tune in next Wednesday or watch after the fact. But we're going to be on, and we're going to be talking about, you know, how we have to eradicate Black breast cancer. We deserve it. We don't need to be, you know, and I know, you know, we can't make breast cancer necessarily go away, but we at least want mortality rate parity for Black women. And we're not going to do this and get what we need and get the drugs that we need and get the treatments that we need and get the care that we need until we advance the science. So thank you for helping us advance the science, helping us think positive, help us, you know, just ground ourselves in love to do this work that we need to do. So
True. Thank you to our sponsors,
Yes.
to people who watch, and thank you to blackdoctor.org for the platform to do this every Wednesday night. We hope it's been relatable, reliable, and real, right? That's what we set out to do every single Wednesday night here on blackdoctor.org. So
thank you,
the
Angie.
doctor's in.
The doctor's in. Breasty love. Breasty love. See you next week. Thanks, Dr. Aisha. I love you. I
Love you, Doc.
Love you too.
Bye.
Bye.